Ladies and gentlemen, this is Big Tech. Break 'em up, bust 'em up, put 'em in jail. Please welcome, from Indiana, Senator Mike Braun, CEO of Truth Social, Devin Nunes. From Florida, Attorney General Ashley Moody. And your host, Vice President of Free Speech America Media Research Center, Dan Schneider.
I think this is the first time at the Gaylord that I've not been able to point and say, "Hi, Mom." So, hey, how are you doing? Well, we've got a great group of panelists. Let's get started. Big Tech, are they your friend or your foe? When I first came to Washington, D.C. in 1996, members of Congress were debating this Communications Decency Act. And the thing I kept on hearing, I see some great members of Congress right here, I kept on hearing people in the hallway say, we have to nurture and protect the internet while it's in its infancy. Now, as a conservative, that didn't even make sense to me then, because what's the role of government in trying to tip the scales for one particular industry? But after all these years, can we agree that big tech is no longer in its infancy? How big is big tech? It's gargantuan. The four largest corporations, publicly traded corporations in world history are Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. Never before has the world seen corporations with such size and strength and power. Collectively, these four have a market capitalization of $8.67 trillion as of Monday. 8.67 trillion. That's such a big number, it almost becomes meaningless. How big is that number? If we look at all 200 countries on the planet, in order of their GDP, where would these four companies compare? Their market capitalization versus GDP. They'd be the fourth largest economy on the planet. Are they little infants that need our protection? Because right now, if you don't like your doctor or your accountant or your car, you can sue. But you can't sue these guys because they're in their infancy and they have to be nurtured and protected. Senator Braun, it's so glad to have you here. What's the Senate doing about asking this question? What kind of protection do these companies still need?
So I come from Main Street, number one, where you do not have any protection other than pure competition. I built a mundane business, logistics and distribution. Started off with 15 employees many years ago, built it into a national company. I embraced competition because most of us do not get the benefit of having laws put in your favor. Everybody else can get sued for whatever they do wrong. Here they're protected. Yes, that was a new concept. No one knew it was going to grow into 8-point-something trillion. Strange dynamic in the U.S. Senate, and it's coming from different angles. The very, very most liberal actually want to take on big tech because they'd like it to be more restrictive. They think it allows too much misinformation, too much First Amendment.
But Senator, is it misinformation or they just don't like disagreement on political issues?
Exactly. If you don't agree with them, you're either wrong, a moron. They definitely take that moral superiority approach. On the other side, it gets a little confusing because we believe in free speech. We want all of that discussion to be had. Some on the conservative side get confused because they think you're tampering with free markets. But free markets, according to Adam Smith, no barriers to entry, full transparency, full competition. That does not describe big tech. They're a new industry. They've taken it to where it is. I'm one that thinks not only by size, but then by behavior, if you're doing things with the most important things that become constitutional, you need to be taken to task. Whether we'll do it or not, I don't know if there's a political will within the Senate. Someday you'll be held to account just by your bad behavior alone. We need leadership in each party, if it's going to reflect some of the ends of each party, to make that happen. Yeah. They are tempting fate because they're taking sides politically. They weigh in on issues and enable political parties, and conservatives have not been the benefit of that.
So look, it's tough to move things in the Senate, especially on this issue, because Chuck Schumer is the Senate Majority Leader. The House has more flexibility. Sitting next to me is not only a former member of Congress who did extraordinary work, but he also launched his own social media platform. So you can do things legislatively. What can be done privately?
So a year ago, came to CPAC, we started beta testing Truth Social. And it's the fastest growing social media company in history. But the key is could we build something that big tech couldn't tear down or couldn't stop? So we partnered with Rumble, and we've been beta testing for them the Rumble Cloud, their video platform, and now the Rumble Ads. And so the truth is that it can be done, but it's very, very difficult, right? I mean, look, I'm the CEO of Truth Social, but I have to tell you, if it wasn't for somebody named President Trump, we probably would not be the fastest growing social media company in history. But I will tell you, there are real headwinds that we're now learning, and I think this is where the Congress, it needs to look. We've all heard of these fact check groups, right? Which I call fake fact check groups. So we're building out and testing this advertising center, and I've noticed just in the last few months that for some reason I don't see that you had those, the major companies in the United States. I don't see any of those companies.
You've just used this phrase, fact checker.
Yeah, fact checker.
So they've been in the news like this global disinformation. By the way, disinformation does not mean disinformation. I assume I don't need to tell you all that.
But yeah, so what I think is important that everybody needs to understand is that, and it's not just Rumble and Truth Social, but we see it now. We see it clearly. And what I'm really worried about is all of the top 200, say, center-right websites, whether it be a Breitbart or a Washington Examiner or a Daily Caller. You guys know them all. Well, what's happened is these fact checkers, which are products of the left. My guess is if you follow the money, you're going to find it leads back to left-wing money and probably big tech. They have blacklisted all of these sites. And so you've got the top 1,000 companies in America who don't want to be harassed, right? Because they'll say, well, fact group that's independent. That's when they say independent means they're not independent. That's the key. Right. And they've blacklisted advertising for all of these center-right. I bet everybody that's out there on Radio Row, they've all been blacklisted by these fake fact-check groups, and I think that's one area that Congress needs to look at.
Yeah. So Google, at the Media Research Center, we did a study going into the last midterm elections, and Google buried a majority of the Republican Senate candidates' campaign websites, but elevated the Democrats. These are your colleagues that they tried to take out by hiding their websites. And just 2 days ago, another organization called All Sources, I believe, just did a study. If you do a Google search on some sort of political issue, you're going to get over 20 times more liberal outlets appearing on your Google search than conservative outlets. Over 20 times. Ashley Moody, truly one of the finest state attorneys general in the country.
Thank you.
General, you've identified harm to the Florida residents. You've taken action on their behalf. What kind of harms have you seen? What are you doing?
Well, a lot of what you've talked about, has complained about to attorneys general around the nation. And it's hard to not see that tech in general, even as it's grown, has offered Opportunity. I'm a mom. I do a lot of things online to get things done, as you can imagine, with a young school-age child at home. So we want to maximize the opportunities that tech provides. I mean, big isn't always bad, but when it starts to harm, we want to minimize harm. We want to minimize any violation of someone's rights. So when I talk about that, what are we talking about? We're talking about violation of free speech, protecting our children, violation of privacy. I mean, all of these things are what people are complaining about and feeling every day. So what has happened since you've said in 1996 when we came up with this statute and these protections, that was before Google was even founded. That was before blog was talked about, right?
How many know Section 230? Do you hear that? Do you know what that is? You know, you're really one of the finest attorneys in the country. In like 2 sentences, what is Section 230?
Well, it says, look, we're going to protect you. We want our internet to grow and grow and grow, and so we don't want everybody coming at you. You should be able to publish information and not be held liable, right? But
you can't sue them. You basically
can't sue them. So here's the problem. As the internet has grown, we've seen the harm that can happen, right? So in Florida, we were the first state to do a big tech bill. We tried to prevent some of this, deplatforming folks, you know, kicking people off, making sure if you're going to give free advertising to someone, a candidate, you let them know so they have to report it. I mean, all of these things we required. We were the first state to do this. So what happens? We get sued. So we've been in court pushing back, arguing, look, we believe that the lower courts have interpreted this 230 very broadly, right? We've asked for the Supreme Court to take us up. We got a bad ruling. Texas got a better ruling. So now we're asking for the Supreme Court to come in and hear this. It's one of the most relevant issues to our daily lives right now.
Yeah. You know, Justice Clarence Thomas has repeatedly asked, essentially, that the Supreme Court hear these cases because he thinks that big tech is clearly well beyond their infancy and acting abusively toward every single person here. Devin, Truth Social is not only dealing with whether you can get on an app store, Google and Apple tried to prevent that from happening, but you're also dealing with, I believe, you're dealing with collusion in government. You're trying to get this thing launched. Yeah. What's going on with the SEC? What's going on with all of these things?
Well, it's the Russia hoax, people never die. They always seem to follow Donald Trump around and me. So the SEC is run by a guy named Gensler. Okay, so
what's the name again?
Gary Gensler is his name.
We know that name.
Well, he was the treasurer for the Clinton campaign.
Yeah.
Who also happened to be the guy who helped launder the money through a law firm to Fusion GPS that hired a British spy.
I bet he's
to
really
make up the fake news about Trump. So yeah, so look, when I came on board, they had announced this financing mechanism for us to do. And I thought, well, what the hell? I mean, it seems like, you know, we have no problems. We'll be transparent. We'll give them anything they want. Well, this is called a SPAC. Typically, it takes 90 to 120 days. Well, we're now going on a year with nothing. And they tell us, oh, well, we're investigating. Well, there's nothing. Well, then we find out that, you guys remember Peter Strzok? Anybody know that name?
Oh.
So he was one of the lovebirds that we busted through our investigation. Well, his wife is one of the lead investigators at the SEC. Okay? So typically, I believe if, you know, we're a Florida company, we should be handled in the Florida regional office, but for some reason, we're being handled here in Washington, D.C., and we get no information. So the key is, look, we've proven that we can build a company and we can stay up despite all the attacks. We're fully isolated against, you know, from big tech. They can't kill us. But how do you try to compete with these trillion-dollar companies, like you said, if we don't have access to the capital markets? So it's one thing to be a social media company, but if we want to grow and give all of these other people a bigger voice and really open up the internet, we've got to be able to access people that want to invest with us.
And look, government colluding with a private party. I mean, one of the reasons the private entities say we need protection is because we're private party, right? And that's true to some extent, but when you have the government, the White House, whomever, telling them strong-arming them into what to allow and what not to allow, what to censor, what not to censor, it's no longer operating like a private party. So the administration is morphing the line between private party and the government. And the First Amendment is meant to restrain government action. And so how can you say they are not impeding upon folks' freedom of speech when they're telling them what they can and can't put on their platforms?
You know, General, in your very first comments, you said that, well, we believe in the First Amendment. When did it become the case that it seems like only conservatives believe in the First Amendment? When did liberals stop thinking that the First Amendment was valuable?
I think the last couple of years, because of folks like you, because of so many in this room, people are paying attention to what has been happening behind closed doors, or should I say online without our knowledge. These algorithms that are being used to moderate content. Did you know when you went and bought your phone that you could download some other search engine? Did you know that that search engine was moderating content pursuant to an algorithm that they put in place? There are other search engines you can use with different algorithms. They're using those to moderate content. Did you know that? I mean, I think a lot of, and this is what we were speaking about, I think a lot of the engagement on these issues is helping people understand what's really happening in these online platforms. You think they're a poster board with anybody can just go and post. No, each one is unique because of an algorithm. And it's telling them how to recommend things to you, how to put things in order once you do a search, how to generate content to be pushed to you. So when you download those platforms, each one is unique. I don't think people realize that really until the last few years. I dare say a lot of people in this room didn't realize that. And it's so important because we need to know that there is competition, and we'll keep pushing forward to make sure there is true, meaningful competition in the areas of big tech.
Senator, what is big tech really up to? What are they doing? Why are they controlling what we hear and see?
My theory on big tech and Democrats in general is they are political enterprisers analogous to any of us that are entrepreneurs. We use the market system, put up with the rules of competition. They will do whatever it takes. Look how fleet-footed they have been over the last couple years. Look at all the stuff they got done, dragging some of our own party along to enable it. That is something that we've got to get better at. One of the most frustrating things for me is when you come from being a real entrepreneur, you know how to figure out the system. You know how to outmaneuver the competition. They will do it with the tools that you can bring to bear at the highest levers of power, and then that means you're going to ally with the private sector that now occupies close to $9 trillion worth of value, and all of a sudden lose any of their past appreciation of free speech because it goes along with their narrative. So somehow we've got to convince people, public, that that is a collusion between the biggest sector of our economy and the fleet-footed part of the political system. We got to get better at it. And until we aren't fighting the game in a way, we're going to be frustrated along the way. I don't know where it ends. I don't think you're going to get action from the Senate or the Congress to where they would impede what has worked for them. And if it doesn't come from our aisle, our side, and explain it in a way, and we get better at it, I think we're going to be constantly frustrated by it.
These three individuals are fighting for you. The senator is fighting in Congress to try to get things done for you. General Moody is fighting for her constituents in Florida, all Floridians. And there are so many state AGs who are following her lead. It's very exciting to see that. And of course, Devin Nunes fought the good fight in DC, standing up to the FBI as the FBI was unfairly, horribly attacking you and your staff to try to silence the truth. There are some members of Congress sitting here in the audience, but most of you are not. I don't know that there's another state AG here with us. And launching a social media platform is tough, really hard. So what can you all do? What can you do as conservative activists to fight against Google? Google that decided 10, 15 years ago that it didn't simply want to create products, that it wanted to create a new society throughout the whole world. What can you do to fight back on Google? Well, you can stop using Google search. Tusk is a brand new search engine and browser. It is run by people who care about free speech, and they care about you. Stop using Google and use Tusk. There are some other search engines out there too. Try to do something that defeats big tech from using your money against you. We heard a little bit about Rumble. Yeah, Alphabet owns Google, and it also owns YouTube. Rumble is an online video provider. It cares about what you think also. It's going to let you do what you want to do and see what you want to see, and it's not going to curate the content that you have. Devin, you want to tell us quickly what Truth Social is?
Familiar with that company.
Yeah, yes. Good.
And we don't use algorithms, Attorney General.
Oh, look at that. Yep. The teacher's going to school us today on algorithms.
Yep. No algorithms at Truth Social.
So I just opened my own Truth Social account. When we go backstage, will you be my first follower?
I'll follow you.
Good. Good. And then finally, how can we live in a society if Bank of America or Citibank shuts down our account simply because we might own a firearm, or we say that men are men and women are women? There's Old Glory Bank. Now, I helped launch Old Glory Bank with some great individuals like Dr. Ben Carson and John Rich. There's now a 60,000 person waiting list to open an account with Old Glory Bank. I would encourage you, learn about Old Glory Bank, and if you like what you see, because they're trying to protect your rights and keep you from getting canceled, you better get in line now so that you can open up your own account. But we have got to fight back because big tech is out to create a society that's different from one that you want, different from one that our founders believed in. And these three individuals are fighting really hard for you. We all need to fight back if we have any chance of saving this American experiment. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.